Hey guys, welcome back to Ceramics at the Golden Art Studio. This week we are going to work on a travel mug. This is also a 2-week video, so today we'll show you how to throw it, and then next week we'll show you how to trim and create the lid. Okay, to get started, you will need one 2.5 pound ball of wedge clay and one 1 pound wedge clay. You'll need a wooden knife tool, a needle tool, a red rib, a soft rib, a harder rib with a nice large flat side, a sponge, your bucket of water, and also a ruler, your towel to keep yourself clean, an apron, and you should be good to go. Right, to throw the mug, we're going to start with that 2.5 pounds, and we're going to actually pat the ball of clay into an actual ball of clay. This will allow for more surface area to touch the bat and less likely to have any air in between the clay and the bat. Then once you have it on the bat, you're going to turn your wheel on slow, and you're going to pat it into a cone shape. Since you're already coning up, this will just make it easier to grab onto your clay. You're going to push it, the edge into the bat so no water can get under it, and you're going to start coning up. Cone up and cone down until you get your 2.5 pounds of clay centered. You know you are not centered when your clay continually moves. Like you can see here, it's like back and forth, back and forth. So I'm going to cone up again and cone it back down. And I'm using the strongest part of my hand. So there's an L-shaped part that's between, going down from the pinky and away from the thumb. And using that side of my hand to come back down and, as I would say, karate chop it down. I'm going to run my fingers over to see if it's actually centered, and I can see right here where my finger's kind of bouncing, that part's not centered. So I'm gonna go and do one more shorter cone up so I can feel that area is more centered, and then I will cone it back down. Now, when you're trying to cone something taller, it's best to not push your clay all the way down to the bat. You want to keep it higher up, because then you've already got a taller shape to work with. So you'll see I clean up the skirt so that I can get in the bat so that I can get a better idea of my shape. When centering this piece, you can leave your tuna can shape actually pretty tall, because we're throwing a taller vessel. So the higher it is at your starting point, the less you have to pull up, because you've already got your height. So now we're going to open by pointing straight down, and we want to go to about where my finger is on the inside, which I know is to my knuckle, and I can see that by looking at the outside too, like how far I can go to get to that line. And then I actually open my cylinders a little different, so you can pull it towards you like we did with the bowl, or I take my finger and I glide it along the bottom, and then I pinch up the wall. So whichever way is easiest for you. After you've done your first pull, compress your rim down. You want to keep doing that. The idea to get a good solid pull and to have your piece not get off center is to make sure you have even walls. So that includes compressing the rim. And in between every pull, I will always recommend squeezing out your sponge and compressing and removing the water from the center of your pot. Now you will just pull up, and we're just making a tall cylinder using more pressure with our outside hand than our inside hand. If you find that when you're pulling your cylinder starts to kind of go outward, you can collar it in. This will make sure your piece stays more even, and don't feel bad doing this because this is such a narrow piece and we only really opened it up to about an inch and a half on the inside. When you reach your hand in, it's going to open up. Quick note, as you are pulling your walls up, release the pressure the closer you get to the top, because we are going to create a little gallery for our lid to sit in. So you need a thicker rim at the top. So continue to pull up and collaring in until you get, our goal here is to get about 7.5 inches tall. As you continue to pull, there comes a point where you might think you're getting to the height you want. It's time to start cleaning up the outside of your piece. Now you can continue to pull after, but as you can see, I'm getting these pressure points where I've pushed too hard in one area or not enough in another, and you really want your walls to be the same thickness throughout. So I'm going to take a break from pulling, and I'm just going to clean up my my outside by holding my rib sort of at an angle and pushing the clay into it. And I am trying to stay as as steady as I can. So my arm is actually kind of into my, like pushing into my leg to keep it from being moved in or out. I'm cleaning off that slip on the outside and also straightening my walls. Again, compress your rim and then you can continue to pull. So I want my travel mug to be close to about 7 inches tall after it's been fired and glazed. So I created this little shrinkage ruler by rolling out a piece of clay and measuring it against a ruler, and have found that there is about a 15% of shrinkage that happens. So, and this went to cone 6. So I know if I want my piece to be about 7.5 inches tall, I have to throw my piece to actually be like almost 8.5 inches. So almost an entire inch shrinkage by cone 6. If you wanted to take this to cone 10, it would shrink even more. So you could make 3 separate rulers, one that goes to 04, which is the bisque fire, or low fire. You could create one ruler that goes to cone 6, which are very glossy glazes that we have, and then cone 10, which is our reduction kiln downstairs, and that's going to shrink even more. So it's a good way if you want to get a certain height to your, or certain height or size to your piece. The ruler will really help you see how big you need to throw. Or you can just think you're going to lose about an inch by cone 6. So I know here I need to do another pull because I need another inch on my piece. Now I'm ready to clean up the outside and inside of my tumbler. So again, I'm taking the straight side of my rib, my yellow rib. It's a little harder than the red one, so it's easy to push from the inside out onto it, where the red one would kind of just bend. And then I take my sponge and hot dog bun it over the top to compress that down again. Clean up the inside, get rid of any remaining water. We don't want any more water at this point. And to clean up the inside, we're going to use the soft red rib. We're going to use the rounded side that's on the outside to clean up the inside. So you're not pushing into the clay, you're just kind of letting it glide along the surface of it. It'll pull off all that slip and help your piece dry more evenly. Now you can take the flat side and run that over the outside of it. With the wooden knife tool, you can use that to get a more definition on the bottom because you want it to be more pointed. You're going to hold it like a pencil and kind of drag it along at the angle that you want and push it all the way to the back. And this will clean up your edges as well. Take your needle tool, scrape it along the bottom, and then you can remove all that sticky stuff that sticks between your piece and the bat. A little more cleaning up and refining. So now we're going to add the gallery onto the rim of our tumbler, and to do so I'm going to use my yellow rib. It has a nice 90-degree angle on it. You can use a clothespin. I've used some people do it with a chamois. This will make it easier. I am compressing the rim one more time, and at this point I've thrown my piece off center because my sponge was too dry. So I re-wet my sponge, and I'm gonna hold it over the rim, not pressing down. I'm just holding it in place and letting the clay kind of gather itself back to center, or as close to center as possible, while my sponge is in place. Then I'm going to take that rib and carefully hold the corner of the rib right in the center of the rim, and I'm going to push down. I know this is hard to see from this angle, but I will show you in a second what it looks like. And you want to make sure, see how my elbows are pushed into my legs? You want to be as still as possible, and you want your hands, both hands, to be touching each other. This will give you the stability you need to evenly press. Use your needle tool to clean up all that gunk that kind of got stuck on your gallery. It's the same idea as cutting off an uneven rim. You're just in one place slowly pressing down until your needle tool goes all the way through, and then you can remove that clay. If it's not perfect, don't worry. As your piece sets up and dries, by next week, you can actually take a sponge and clean up your gallery so that it's nice and smooth. You don't have any pieces that are stuck out. And then take your sponge and carefully hold that over the gallery that you just created and smooth out your edges. With your ruler, you are going to measure, and I use the centimeters because it's a smaller measurement to get a more accurate reading. You are going to measure the diameter of the top of your tumbler, and it's not edge to edge, it's that piece of where your lid will sit within the gallery. So don't measure from outside to outside. It's not going to work. You can buy calipers. I love calipers. I showed you how to use them previously in class, but we can't share them because of the whole COVID-19 crisis. So you will be required to buy your own. The same with having your own ruler. Ruler's just cheaper. So there you go. It's smooth. I didn't cut it off the bat, but make sure you cut it off the bat before you stick it in front of the fan. Now we are ready to throw the lid. Again, with your ball of clay attached to the wheel. It's such a small amount, I'm not coning up and down here. I'm just gonna take a very wet sponge and push down with my right hand and in with my left hand with equal pressure to center my piece of clay. And then I'm really just creating a flat disc. No special thing for this. We're actually gonna add and hand build the pieces that will make the lid stay together onto the tumbler after. So nothing else is going to go on this. It's just a simple disc. Depending on the depth of which you pushed your gallery at the top of your tumbler will determine how thick your disc needs to be. So I'm pushing mine to just under or about a centimeter. But if it's too big, don't worry, or too thick. Doesn't matter, we can remove some of that afterwards. So the idea here for this simple lid is to create your disc, and it's better to be a little bigger than to be smaller. So use your best judgment. When I am measuring with a ruler and not using calipers for my lids, I actually do the radius because you can tell where the center of your disc is, and I just measure from the center outward, and then I'll mark where I need to cut, and just again push straight down on the bat with my needle tool to cut the correct shape or correct size for my lid. Once cut, you'll need to again clean up the edges of your disc, and then you'll need to make sure you compress the top of your piece down. Again, this could break, so make sure you are compressing it down. I'm using the wooden knife tool to just like kind of give me a little space underneath for my cut wire. One more time, cleaning it up and compressing. So if you have any questions, this is it for the lid. If you have any questions, I'll be here in class to help. And just make sure you cut it with a cutting wire. That way it will release easier for next week, and we will trim next week. So I'll be in class if you have any questions. Hope you enjoy this project. Bye.